So one thing I just thought I'd show you is if you feel that you have put too much of a certain colour over the top and you want to try and get it back, you can almost print the ink back off again. So I'm just going to use a piece of tissue here, and where I want to bring some of the grey back, the darker colour back, I'm just going to use a piece of card, like a sort of spatula here, and see if I just press down on there, I'm hoping it's going to take off some of that, some of the blue, and it will probably also take off some of the grey as well, but at least it will take off the blue. So where I'm pressing down is taking a bit of the blue ink off onto this piece of scrap tissue. And I don't know if you can see that, I'll show you in a minute. It is taking it off, and so that grey is coming back, bringing it back into the picture. Just a little bit. So you're kind of doing the reverse of what you did originally. And it's just giving it a bit more horizon line in quite a subtle way. So there we go. I brought some of that grey horizon line, those grey clouds, I guess, back into the picture just by taking some of that blue off. And the next thing I'm going to do, I really like this softness where I just rolled wet paint onto wet paint, and I really like the softness of it. So I wasn't actually going to do this, but I'm going to do it again with a sort of orange colour, because I'd like to get that softness. You won't get that level of softness and subtlety once the ink's dried. So it's quite nice if you want to get like lovely drifts of colour, soft colour, to do it when it's wet on wet, we call it. So I'm just rolling a bit out on my roller, and in actual fact, I might roll a slightly redder colour as well. Okay, that is showing up a little bit, but I think what I'm going to do, I've got a slightly redder colour here. I'm going to kind of roll that in. See if that will work as well. Okay, there we go. So it's very soft, but when the nice bright red sunset is added in at the top, it will look like a reflection, hopefully. Okay, so the last layer that we're going to put on here, just for this first go, these first few layers of a piece, I'm on a print on tissue paper. I'm just going to add some grey clouds, and kind of beyond this point, things are going to get quite murky, quite muddy, so it's probably worth then waiting, letting the ink dry, and then adding extra bits on. So this is the stage where you can get lovely drifts of colour, really soft blends of colour, wet on wet, working wet on wet. And then once you leave it to dry, what you subsequently put on will be a lot more defined, less misty, I guess. So take advantage of the lovely effects that you can get with wet on wet when you do these first few layers. And in fact, I'm just going to add a little bit more paint there. Okay, and I'm just going to get a piece of kitchen towel here. I prefer kitchen towel to rag when I'm doing something like this. Get a little bit more control. And I'm just taking some of the ink off in quite a sort of painterly way. Trying to get a sort of soft cloud feel. I don't want to cover up too much of that lovely yellow that we've put on, light yellow that we've put on. So I'm going to take quite a lot of that ink off. And the paper hopefully will pick up on most of the marks that you make. So if you're making a mark in the ink, because this is tissue paper, it's really thin paper, and this is our first few layers of ink, it should pick up some pretty, most of the marks you make, basically. Okay. So we can always add more. We can always do, put more layers on. We can cover bits up. So I'm not being really precise at this point. I am trying to make sure that I've got a nice clear bit here where that yellow ink that we've already put on the page is going to show through, I hope. I'm just making sure I've got quite a bit of the grey off there, so we get a nice yellow, bright yellow coming through. And then again, move that roller out of the way. I am going, what I often do to do this is I sort of fold the paper along the line that I don't want to go beyond, and that helps me to place it in the right place. And then I'm going to put that along the horizon line. Yeah. And then I just lay the paper over. Using hands to start with just to smooth it out, and I think I might just leave it with hand pressure actually. There's a lot of paint on the paper now, so I think things will start to get a bit splodgy and a bit murky, especially if you apply too much pressure. So let's see how that's turned out. If I need to add more pressure, I will. Okay, I think that's about right. So there we go, we've got some cloud coverage. So at this point I'm going to now stop, let everything dry, and then I can decide what I want to keep and what I want to cover up and what extra bits I want to add. Okay, so just to show you what I've ended up with at the end of that session, because it's quite difficult to see when I hold it up. And this is what I've ended up with. So really just a few layers. I've got some lovely texture in there where the tissue paper has wrinkled a little bit and I've just allowed it to. And I've got some lovely colours. So I'm going to let that dry now, and I will probably do a part 2 video at some point to finish that off.